Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today, From Dock to Deployment, Enabling Real Beyond Visual Line of Sight Operations at Scale. I am Danielle Gandhi, Head of Marketing and Communications for BVLOS Aerospace, and the moderator for this call. Before we get started, just a reminder that we welcome your questions, and we'll be having a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. You're welcome to submit your questions at any time during the webinar by clicking on the Q&A box at the bottom of the webinar screen and typing in your questions. If we are unable to answer your question today, we'll be happy to connect with you after the program. This presentation will be recorded and made available to everyone via email within 24 hours. Now that that is done, it is my honor to introduce Rob Walker, Chief Commercial Officer of BVLOS Aerospace, Greg Colasiti, Chief Operating Officer of BVLOS Aerospace, and Sean Falconer, Managing Director of BVLOS Drones. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you.
Do you want to, I'll start with a quick introduction of the company, very quick, and try not to I won't be in reading mode, and the slide decks can be made available, et cetera, et cetera. So don't worry if I'm moving too fast for you to be reading everything. But BVLOS is about 5 years old. We are a combination of a number of companies that have been acquired as we've scaled the business up. The company started as what we lovingly refer to as two guys in a truck. I had a small inspection company based in Winnipeg, and teamed up with a few other companies, and we created BVLOS Aerospace. Our CEO is based in the East, and I'm based in the West. The company has about $30 million in revenue right now. We're publicly traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange the TSXV. And FLT is our symbol if anybody is interested. And if you ever want to know financial backing information, etc., are we going to be around forever to help support you? You can get all of our financial details off of the TSX site or from our investor website. The company is, we have a global footprint now. We're operating throughout Canada, throughout the United States. We have offices now in the UK and Norway. And we have a business development office in Lima, Peru. Just to give you an idea of the scope we're talking about, what that means for you is that we get the backing and the support and the attention of drone manufacturers and suppliers around the world. And we can always be looking for the best technologies and the best ways to bring the technologies to our clients. The three divisions of the company is an equipment division we call BVLOS Drones. We have a services division that specializes in more unique inspection work. It requires heavy investments in equipment and sensors. And then we have what we call the Academy, and this is our training division where we do everything from your basic pilot license training and flight reviews to very specific training on how to work with LiDAR equipment, how to certify pilots as thermographers, how we work with creating orthomosaics and understanding RTK, etc. We have courses available for all of that. Those three legs of our business is a good combination for backing the nesting station. Yes, you can go to the next slide, Danielle. So some of the key things that we have that are setting ourselves up well to be the support network that our clients need for their interest or their deployment of nesting stations is we have experience in both manned and unmanned commercial operations. We're doing over 1 million miles of pipeline inspection in North America with fixed wing aircraft. This has given us significant footprint in the regulatory world for both commercial, and now in the unmanned operations. So regulations are very important and a key advanced capability that Volatus has. The ability to work beyond visual line of sight. I'm only going to speak about our Canadian regulations right now, but our beyond visual line of sight in Canada is allowing us to work in many situations coast to coast without having to go and get an SFOC for every single job. We have a number of blanket SFOCs, which I can get into, but we also are set up where we can help our clients get the SFOCs as well. We have established standard operating procedures, safety management systems, flight ops manuals. All of this type of activity can be made available to our clients. We can help develop that with our clients. The automated and remote flight. Drone Delivery Canada is one of our most recent mergers. And Drone Delivery Canada, since 2019, have been operating remote autonomous flights from the control center that you see in the top right corner here since 2019. And Greg's going to talk a little bit more about that because we've tied this capability into the offering that we think will be a very valuable asset for our clients to make use of. A nesting station, next slide. The nesting station is a great combination of our three legs, the training, the equipment sales, and the drone service provision. What we have to be careful of now when we talk nesting stations is if you look at the picture on the left, you've got, you got your pilot, your visual observers, some clients that might be coming out to watch what's happening occasionally. You get a lot of people in the field standing around, couple working, couple observing. All of that can be brought in-house or to your office, to a screen in your office if you use a nesting station. However, if you just buy a nesting station and go, okay, I can do it all, we're here to tell you today why that really just makes your nesting station a glorified carrying case. If you don't have the right permissions and you have to operate remotely, the best you can do is carry your nesting station in your truck and stand there and operate it if you don't have the right regulatory permission to operate it remotely. And we're going to talk about that right away. Next slide. So the nesting stations, why even consider the nesting station? What are some of the key benefits that you can get from the nesting station? The return on investment, how do you calculate it? What elements are going to be part of that calculation? The first one is the safety. We saw there was a number of people in the field wherever your operation happens. You reduce the people in the field to, in most cases, no people in the field. So your safety is improved. Operational costs. You don't transport people out to your site all the time, incurring the costs of the travel, incurring the costs, the opportunity costs of those employees being somewhere where they can't quickly move to their next task versus if they were already in their office. More importantly, the real-time data that a nesting station unleashes for the client. Instead of flying, getting your data, finding a place to upload it, or getting back to the office and taking your cards out and loading your data and then doing the work, a nesting station properly outfitted can give you almost a real-time data flow. In some cases, it will give you a real-time data flow. Scalability. Scalability is important because as you find the value coming, you can quickly duplicate what you're doing with your nesting stations. And now you can, if you have one sand and gravel where you want to keep track of volumetrics, but now you've got three or four and they're not within the right area that you can service it with one dock, another dock, and pretty soon you're multiplying, you have a multiplier effect with the scalability. Can you go to the next slide? So, what are some of the use cases? And I apologize, I'm sure that no one's watching my face, you're watching the table. On security and surveillance, and when I mean surveillance, this is, typical things are perimeter patrol, response to alarms. So instead of you get a lot of times they're false alarms, but you've got to deploy a person to get to where the alarm is coming from. If your site has the ability to have a nesting station, you get the alarm. You can have the first look with your eye in the sky from your nesting station. There's infrastructure and construction. You've got a construction project that you want to monitor, you want to watch, you want to do safety analysis, you want to do volume controls, you want to just look at your stockpiles of material, and you want to put a nest there for, say, 2, 3 months and then move it to the next job site. This is totally possible with these nesting stations. Energy and utilities. Um, the substation work is important because a lot of times you have to send people to far off remote locations. If you put a substation there, you just trigger the drone to give you your eye in the sky to move around the site as you need. Mining and heavy industries, we've got a couple of clients that have conveyor systems over land. Some of them are, a couple of kilometers long. They want to do thermal analysis of the conveyor belt. So instead of hand walking a guy along the conveyor belt for those 2 or 3 kilometers, some of them need to do these checks daily. We can now put the thermal drone on the site, and that can be part of its daily routines and missions, which can all be scheduled. So you could do a perimeter patrol, you can do a thermal inspection, you could put an eye in the sky at shift change. There's so many different things that you can do with it when you are putting a site-based or an operation-based nesting station. And rather than read you the whole gambit, maybe the last one I'll talk about is the remote and the asset monitoring. Um, Most of the nesting stations that are available today have a 5 and some push it to a 10-kilometer radius of coverage. So how does that help you with your long range missions where you want to go, 100 kilometers? Right now, you have to look at daisy chaining nesting stations because there isn't a drone that has that kind of range yet. There are some coming, but we're talking 2026, mid to late 2026, where you get the longer range drones that are coming. So right now, while it's great for specific assets that you have to visit on a regular basis, it's a little more complicated, but not impossible to do right-of-way type work with nesting stations. There are mobile opportunities where a nesting station can be put in the back of a truck. You don't necessarily have to have the visual observers and the qualified pilots. You can put any of your crew, as long as safety trained crew, can have one in the back of the truck. They get to the spot where they need it to operate, and it can be called into the remote center, and the pilot at a desk in your control center or in our control center can operate that drone. Next slide. Couple of quick things of what can be seen. So this is a real-time stream from a drone can be deployed from the nest. So in your control room, or you can have the thermal feed with some AI enhancement. So those are real time, what you're seeing, but you can see how the AI enhancement is picking up things that is in the real feed. Both these feeds are coming from the drone. The one on the right is being forced through an AI. So we can see vehicles, we can see people, we can even identify animals. Next slide. Let's talk about uh, certain power locations or solar farms where you have different types of activity that have to be monitored on maybe not 24/7. Well, it's totally possible, but you have to have regular monitoring of certain assets. The nesting station is the perfect solution for something like that. You can use multi-sensors. You can send high resolution data. You can have insights where uh, your drone is sending the data to your control screen. The, the person monitoring this can see that there's an anomaly or there's an issue that has to be responded to, and you can actually action the correcting of that problem much quicker than the drones go out. They do their flights, they come back to the office, you check all of the information, and then you go, oh, we're going to have to go and fix that. You've probably lost the time it took to come back from the field and the time to redeploy to the field. You can cut that kind of response time minimum in half. Next slide. This is a great use case for a nesting station. You've got open mine pits, whether it doesn't matter what the material being mined is. You want to know, what are your stockpiles looking like? I know there's different models for companies supplying material that's coming out of their stockpiles. They're selling by weight, or they have certain contracts to deliver a total amount. But now you can have regular, daily, hourly, whatever is the right thing for your business. You can have those volume calculations being done all the time, in almost real time. You can have change detection. So you want to just go, hey, week to week, this site changes. Things can happen. You can force the imagery through AI to quickly highlight your changes. You're doing some greenfield work before you build. So you're putting your nesting station there, and it's doing all of your mapping and your survey work. Now, depending on the level of detail, whether you are RTK based, whether you need LiDAR, or you can do this with ortho mosaics. We have to figure that out on a case by case basis. Next slide. So I'm going to turn it over at this point to Greg, our operations, he's in charge of all of operations for Volatus. He has several people working in the control center, and I think instead of using up all his time, I'll just hand it over to Greg.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Um, as Rob mentioned, we have been running this facility here since 2019. As you can see in the image, the facility actually it's the first of its kind in North America, and it was designed entirely to meet the regulatory requirements of BVLOS operations and to be able to operate drones both in Canada and globally. The facility is quite large. It's a theater-styled room, which has it's a secured access and controlled environment, which is very important, especially for Transport Canada, as they want to ensure a sterile cockpit for any operations that are happening. Um, One of the important factors of our facility here is the redundant communications. And so essentially we have two lines of communication, both Rogers and Bell, which are actually being piped into our facility. And they have a failover switchgear that actually changes depending on what bandwidth either of the services have. We also have 5 hours of backup power. This essentially ensures that we'll always have a safety buffer while operating our drones. If there was to be a power outage, we wouldn't necessarily launch a new drone unless obviously it's truly necessary until that power is recovered. But it's more just to ensure that we have safety and that we're able to monitor and make sure we can bring those drones back to the ground safely. The facility runs itself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we have full oversight of all operations. And I should point out, to date, since 2019 to current, we've completed just over 10,000 commercial drone operations throughout Canada. We're flying today. We have commercial operations that are happening from this facility that are happening directly at the YEG, so the Edmonton International Airport. So we're actually flying out of the airport, delivering actually part of one of our delivery operations. We're flying medical supplies from the airport to a First Nation community. Another very unique operation that we're also conducting on a daily basis from this facility is the first of its kind hospital to hospital delivery in North America, which happens from the Milton Hospital to the Oakville Trafalgar Hospital, where we're actually carrying patients' blood and urine samples. And we're doing this on a daily basis with no visual observers. It's a 14-kilometer stretch of operations that we're conducting true BVLOS flights from this facility. The one more thing I'll add about this room is it's right now it's capable of housing 20 RPAS operators that can perform operations simultaneously. And depending on what that operation is, many of these operators can operate one to many. In this case, if we're talking a nesting solutions, it's typical between 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 in terms of operator to nesting solutions. Danielle, if you want to advance to the next slide. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on BVLOS requirements in Canada, just to level set everyone to understand what's involved in order to be able to operate either your own nesting station or have a company like Volatus perform that operation. So if it was any company to do BVLOS operations in Canada, is required to be a commercial RPAS operator. And what that means is you have to have a series of documentations and established way of doing business. So first and foremost, you would need to develop and provide a flight operations manual. And you can see from what the points on the slide, some of the areas that are covered inside the flight operations manual are your roles and responsibilities, emergency protocols, risk mitigation, communication protocols. So the regulator, Transport Canada, truly wants to understand how everything is going to happen. What that operation it truly will entail. Once you have the flight operations manual, the next requirement is a safety management system manual. And that's essentially ensuring that everything is done safely and you have a process to manage whatever those outcomes are in a safe and effective way. And then the third manual that would be required is a training requirement manual. And this essentially ties back to our academy where we provide a ton of service in this area in terms of training and development. But ultimately, this manual would have to be shared amongst your entire organization so that everyone that's involved in that BVLOS operation understand what's required with regards to training and executes the necessary training at that time. And then the final piece is ensuring that you do have an advanced RPAS operator. Now, many people that are on this call may know that the regulations are changing as of November. So that part of it is going to change from an advanced operator, or sorry, an advanced pilot to a level 1 complex operator. And it's similar to an advanced, except it's just slightly more specific, and there's a few more levels of understanding that Transport Canada wants every pilot to have. So it's not impossible to go from advanced to level 1. Again, we offer some of that training as well, and it's just understanding what's required. Now, looking at the BVLOS requirements, if you were an organization that said, okay, now I have my commercial RPAS operator, I'm a commercial operator, how do I go out and get a SFOC for BVLOS? Well, once you have the first side, which is on the left, once you have all those documents, you then need to develop what's called a concept of operation. And in that, you have to essentially provide step by step on what you're going to be doing, what the mission objectives are. And it could be as simple as, we're using this nesting station, we're going to monitor a job site, and this is how the job site's going to be monitored. So once you understand that, that's the first part. The next thing you have to, inside the concept of operations, you have to understand what the airspace and ground structures are. So putting all this in collaboration with the technical specifications of the RPAS, you now have a built-up ConOps. Beyond this, you'll have to develop a SORA, which is otherwise known as a Special Operation Risk Assessment. You'll then have to develop the OSO, which is also an Operational Safety Objective, compliant checklist, And all of this is basically to show the regulator, show Transport Canada that you've understood what the risks are. You understand what the difference is between ground risk and air risk, how you're going to mitigate those risks, and how you're going to conduct an operation in the safest way possible. Um, Once all of that package is completed, you would then simply apply for an SFOC, which is, for those that may not know, it means a Special Flight Operation Certificate. You would apply for that application and you'd wait around for the 30-day review process. That process, if you've checked off every box and answered every question, you'll typically get that SFOC for the BVLOS operation within that period. If not, there might be some back and forth with Transport Canada. Danielle, next slide, please. And now I want to share, so we're Volatus BVLOS approvals and national advantage. So let's say I want to explain where we're slightly different than most companies. And so why I say we're a little bit more different. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we're the first company in North America to have a full-scale, redundant, secured, and approved operations control center. With that comes years of experience of conducting beyond visual line of sight flights. So we have been conducting beyond visual line of sight flights for the last 7 years, and some more difficult than others. We do long range, far away distances. But to top additional stuff of what I want to share is just recently we've received our Canada-wide daytime BVLOS in sheltered airspace that allows for us to conduct operations around structures. So and this is beyond visual line of sight. So it's this ties right back into that nesting solution. So we can, as a company, Volatus can place a docking solution and be able to conduct operations as early as tomorrow, once that docking solution is placed there anywhere in Canada during the day. We also have received high-risk BVLOS operations, which is a SAIL 4, highest SAIL rating that Transport Canada has given to any company in Canada for BVLOS operations. With this, we're flying in an urban setting over people while delivering packages. So again, very complex. This is very high-level BVLOS operations. We've also received approvals for small and medium R passes ranging in size between 25 to 150 kilos to be able to do BVLOS operations. Again, this ties into more of the larger stuff, more complex operations. And then I should point out that we also received just recently our Canada-wide nighttime BVLOS in Class G atypical airspace. So what that implies is if pretty much anywhere that's not around, and I can get into more details if anyone has any questions, but I want to try to keep this short. But essentially, we can fly anywhere in Canada that's not near an airport and not near very densely populated airspace. Excuse me, densely populated areas like downtown Toronto or something like that. We can fly anywhere during the night. So just to understand a bit more of our strategic advantage now. Again, you working with Volatus, you gain access to atypical and restricted airspaces without visual observers. We actually were just approved as an ROC compliant operator. So this is what's going to be the new standard as of November. Transport Canada is looking for commercial operators to now have their ROC. Volatus already has their ROC. We already have our level 1 pilot certificate team, as well as built-in training to provide others. This is all going to be standard issue as of November. This is something we already have. We also have been working for years with ground-based radar, detect and avoid technology. One of our operations currently is operating a full-blown a ground-based radar. Similar radar that you would see at Toronto Pearson Airport or various airports around the country. This is the same sort of technology we're working with. We also have technology that we can deploy to make things more manageable depending on the location as well. And then to just put the end to that, we also have an end-to-end sort of regulatory support team. So internally as a company, we have our own in-house regulatory department. So we have full-time staff that deal directly with the regulators, both in Canada, US, and in Europe. Um, and finally, we have our own Transport Canada declared RPAS flight training school. So these are some of the things that provide our customers with strategic advantages over people that are not in that same space and don't have this offering. And with that, I will pass it off to Sean, who's going to take it the balance of the way, I believe.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg, and thank you for everyone attending the webinar. Yeah, so we spoke about docking stations, the benefits of docking stations, how they can improve your ROI. And now we've spoken about, Greg went into depth about the requirements to actually operate a docking station remotely. The regulatory requirements, the the command center requirements, the data requirements. There's a lot that goes into it. So now we're going to talk about what Volatus has to offer as a hardware, as a solution to all this. So I'm proud to show the Volatus Sentinel dock. It is a turnkey solution when it comes to remote docking solutions. It has everything that you need built in to essentially drop it off, set it up, and deploy. You know, there's a growing market for docking systems. You know, you see this when you go to any of the drone manufacturer shows. It seems like everyone and their brother has a docking station now. But what sets this apart is that, as I said earlier, it's turnkey. A lot of those docking stations are what Rob alluded to earlier. They're just a glorified carrying case. You know, they house the drone, they can charge the drone, protect the drone from the elements, but they really don't get into all the nitty-gritty details and requirements to actually operate a dock remotely from a remote location that does not require a human being to be on site. And that's where the Volatus Sentinel dock comes in. The dock itself is it's based off of the DJI Dock 3, which is the latest DJI dock. DJI has already had the DJI Dock 1, the Dock 2, and with each iteration, they massively improve the dock system. The Dock 3 holds the Matrice 4D and 4TD drones. The T in that is just a variant that has thermal. So just to talk quickly about the drones themselves, some of the specs that everyone has questions on. There's a variety of sensors on board, whether it's wide angle camera for mapping, telecamera for zoomed in inspections, laser rangefinder, so you can actually measure distances, which is pretty powerful. And then the T version has an infrared camera on board. You get a 27-minute charge time when the drone is actually nested in the station, and a 54-minute flight time. So that means if you have two units, you could essentially have continuous operation, no downtime. When one drone comes into charge, the other one's either out of the box flying to the location the last drone was, or it's just being deployed. So you can have true 24/7 constant operation with two Volatus Sentinel docks. It comes on a steel skid platform. Everything's mounted right on there. So again, it's just drop off and deploy. What a lot of people don't realize when they start getting into docking systems is the site prep. It's not really marketed anywhere what kind of work needs to be done to the site in order to have a dock if it's not, you know, mounted on a skid like ours. In most cases, you need to have a 4 to 6 inch concrete pad with electrical power, like unique electrical power systems coming up to through the underside of the concrete pad to provide the proper power and stability, stable system for the drone to for the dock to mount to. Again, since it's on a steel skid, you don't need to do any of that site prep. It's just you drop it off the truck, set it up, and you're ready to roll. There's integrated communications and power on board. You have Ethernet, Wi-Fi, cellular, and it's Starlink ready. So again, if you don't have data on site, which we imagine a lot of these locations would not, you know, you're dropping this in the middle of nowhere near a distribution area, distribution point for power. there's no data out there, or you're way up north in one of these remote locations, there's no data up there. This is Starlink ready, so you're able to have that data on site. There's environmental systems on board too. There's a 360 camera, so you can always have eyes on the drone itself, which is part of the requirement to fly remotely. It comes out, you do a little inspection with the camera to make sure that everything looks okay, pre-flight inspection, and you're able to take off. There's a weather station, so you're able to understand what kind of flight conditions are around you. And there's actually even a onboard fire suppression system. So if something were to happen, it stops the spread of a fire. Again, very important if you're in a remote location and you're hours away from a fire department being able to show up and put that fire out. It takes care of itself. And then there's also an option for HVAC as well, so that the system is heated and cooled properly, so that you're able to take off and charge in the correct ambient temperature. So there's a lot of stuff built right into the Sentinel. There's a lot of equipment, but again, the important thing to remember is that it's drop and deploy, right? There's no need to build that concrete pad or put together all these separate systems to make the dock work. Everything comes on that skid. Next slide, please. So Rob spoke earlier about some of the use cases. There are a few considerations that you need to take into account when you deploy one of these, whether it be fencing to secure the site, how many units you actually want to use, the power and network access, because again, you might not have network access being in the middle of nowhere. You most likely won't have power access either. So there are options with the Sentinel for either a diesel generator or a solar panel. So it's truly off grid. We are able to provide setup from beginning through operation. That's why we're able to provide that turnkey solution. As Greg spoke earlier about the regulatory aspect behind that, we can help you through it, or you can work with us through our command center, our OCC, so that you don't have to deal with all those regulatory issues. Again, it's that we can either host or co-host that beyond visual line of sight operation from our OCC. Or if you really want one, we could help build you a mini OCC so that you could operate your docks remotely. Next slide, please. So yeah, getting into pricing. So the model that has the thermal image, the thermal payload on board, it's just under 85,000 Canadian. The version that does not have the thermal imager on board, it's just under 80,000 Canadian. And that's to purchase the unit. We also offer rentals as well, whether it's monthly or yearly. That would drive the price of the per month rental. Included is, again, what we talked about earlier, the dock and the drone, the steel skid platform, the comms, the power, the camera, the weather station, and then the fire extinguisher. Optionally, you can get that HVAC system, the ADS-B receiver, which essentially tells you what air traffic is above you, and then a actual drone parachute to mount to the top of the drone. So if there was an issue, the power is cut on the drone, the parachute automatically deploys, and it just floats back down to the ground. Next slide, please. Right. So we talked about power earlier. Again, if you're truly in a completely remote environment and you have nowhere to plug this thing in, you're going to need some sort of power solution, whether it's a generator, like I spoke about earlier, or a solar power system. Both these systems are able to charge the drone and keep your operation running. Next slide, please. Again, if you choose to work with us to do your operations rather than creating your own command center, that's something that we can offer. We can help run your missions. for $150 during the day and $240 at night. Again, it really comes down to if you want to um, own the entire system, or if you want to work with us to rent the system and then rent our time at the OCC to help enable your operation. Next slide, please. I have to mention that there could be potential add-ons and a few other requirements. Again, the data is not included. If you use Starlink or other comms that we can help provide, that would be an additional subscription. You may need an aviation radio. Again, it depends on your mission. Again, that's another cost and subscription. We do offer maintenance, like a maintenance package. That's something that's optional. So we go out to your site on a regular basis and make sure that everything is running correctly, make sure that the batteries on the drone are at a healthy state, and do an inspection of the drone. And if it needs to be replaced, just swap out the drone right then and there, so that your operations stay up and running. You don't have any downtime. We would also charge for initial setup if you require that service. Again, that's the shipping to the site, the providing any sort of security fencing around the site, which is highly advisable, and then any sort of commissioning, the actual setup of the system to make sure it's working. That would be a fee as well. Again, there's a bunch of ways you could go about it. Either own the whole process yourself and you're just purchasing the hardware from us, or you can work with us to either rent a unit or work with us to help you set up the unit. There's many different ways, and we're very flexible on how we get these Sentinel docks deployed. Next slide, please. And I'll pass it back to Danielle.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that everyone can see your faces. I am looking at the Q&A right now. So we have Alexis has asked, where is the OCC located, and do you offer visits?
So I can take that question. The OCC is located in Vaughan, Ontario, just north of the airport, Pearson Airport, probably about 10-15 minutes north. We can offer visits definitely, but it's not by invitation, but by appointment only. Yes, we can.
So this is probably another one for you, Greg. Is your atypical beyond visual line of sight, is it 200 AGL, or is it 100 and AGL is above ground level?
So the way the atypical works for us and for everyone actually, when we talk on for daytime flights for sheltered airspace, essentially it's 100 feet above a structure and 200 feet horizontal of that structure. So we can fly, if we placed a Sentinel dock at a facility, we can potentially do the entire perimeter above the buildings, around the buildings, as long as we're within those specific numbers.
And is the power needed for the dock 120 volt or 240 volts? Sean, do you know that answer, or can we get back to him?
I will have to get back to him on that. I can look that up right now.
What is the approximate range of the new dock capable? Rob mentioned it might be coming out in, so he's asking about where the new docks are coming, whether that range will extend and what we're looking at in 2026 and beyond.
On mute, Rob.
You're mute.
The dock I was referring to is a dock that comes with an aircraft that is a long-range aircraft. It's about 120 kilometer capable aircraft. The aircraft itself is in the $70,000 to $100,000 range, and the dock is likely to be very, very close to the same. It would be for very specific operators. I think that the DJI dock, the DJI nesting stations would have a different user group than the dock that I was referring to. But yeah, you're looking at a budget of at least 140,000, and that's US dollars, sorry. So you're closer up here in Canada, unless we can get that exchange rate
Definitely.
closer. You're probably looking closer to $185,000.
This is a clarification question. For what is a ROC referring to, and how does that relate to the advanced pilot or level one complex operator?
Okay, so thank you. Great question, by the way. So ROC stands for RPAS, which is remote piloted aircraft. And then OC is the so remote piloted aircraft operator certificate. So that implies that us as the RPAS, we now have an operation certificate to fly RPASs. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of that, Danielle?
How does the ROC relate to the advanced pilot level one complex operator certificate?
It doesn't actually. So the ROC is the corporate. That's the structure. If you are a commercial entity looking to be into the drone space to fly and operate drones commercially, as of November, you would be required to have an ROC. And then beyond that, all your pilots that work within that ROC, today it's an advanced pilot that flies commercial operations. As of November, it would be a level one complex pilot.
And I know that we love our acronyms in aviation.
Too
ROC can
many.
also be referring to the radio operating certificate, which is not what we're discussing
No.
here. So the question here is, can we just buy the dock and drone from you? And if we already have the dock, can we buy the add-ons from us?
Rob, Sean?
Yes.
I would say yes to that, definitely,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes. Just
Yeah,
waiting for someone to say
the
yes.
answer is yes. I said the one thing, obviously, if they've got the dock and the nest, and let's just for this argument assume it's a DJI Dock 3 and DJI equipment, and it's being properly maintained and operated as per the DJI operations manual, then we would have no problem standing behind it and adding to it and working with it. If it's some robo drone that has been assembled, then that would be a bit of a different story.
For the remote operator pricing, are you paying per flight or for coverage hour? And with multiple docks, is it the flight hour per the drone, or is it however long that's flying?
Me? We put that base level pricing out based on flight hour per drone.
There are questions. Do you know of any police or fire departments in Canada that are using the dock yet?
Me?
If you know.
There's been a number of departments that have been looking at it. I cannot comment if anyone has bought, because there's several organizations in our country that sell the DJI equipment. So I'm going to say I don't know, but I definitely know there's been demonstrations happening.
And we're actually, just to follow up to that, we can speak with our the hardware team in Canada and get an idea of how many just Dock 3s they've sold throughout the country. And then we are having a demo day.
Later
I'll
next
have to
month.
check. Yeah, later next
Later next
month.
month.
And we'll have a Dock 3 there to demo. Not the Sentinel. We won't have the Sentinel there, but we'll have the piece of the pie, the Dock 3, to demonstrate.
Yeah, that's July 8 and 9.
Yeah.
And where is that going to be located?
So we actually have our own 100-acre testing and demonstration facility just north of our facility, where we'll be demonstrating. We fly there on a daily basis, and to anyone that's interested in one of these units, it's something that we can service that we can provide should they want to see what the system looks like and
Right.
feels.
So that's in Vaughan or in north of Toronto. However, we do have facilities in Alberta and in Manitoba, and we have been talking about moving the demos across into the prairies as well. If someone is interested in a demo, they should let us know, because there's always opportunities to tie it into other work that's happening and provide that demo.
And I will put in an email that will enable you to reach any one of our team members right in our chat. So it would be info@volatus.aerospace.com, and that will get you to Rob, Greg, myself, and Sean. So everyone should be able to see that now in the chat. And here's another question. Is it becoming more common for pipeline companies to replace air patrol or right of way with docks or drones? And is this more cost effective?
So it's more common for them to be thinking about it. But the key to that question is the cost effectiveness to switch. So you have to think of the honestly, like we're doing millions, and that sounds ooh, millions and billions, but no, it's millions of miles of pipeline, and there is no drone option to make that cost effective to completely dronify. However, in some pipeline activity, um, the docking station is a great option. You think about the wellheads, or you think about concentrated infrastructure in a 5 kilometer radius. Draw a circle over where your work patterns are. And if you've got regular inspections that have to happen in that kind of an area, a dock can be very cost effective.
So you briefly mentioned early on about putting a drone in the back of a truck. Is it possible to make the system mobile?
Yes, to a degree. Yes. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
can
They
you
you
qualify that a
there.
little bit?
So let me back up. So there, you can mount up to two DJI Dock 3s in the back of a pickup truck, um, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles of the uh, the weather station, the fire extinguisher, the camera. That can't be done in the back of a pickup truck. That said, it's on a skid, so I'm sure that there is a way to make this more mobile. You just keep it permanently mounted to the back of a larger vehicle, and you can drive it around and do what you need to do. It would require some, I would say, fortification of some of the components because you'd be driving around all these data masts and stuff over potentially bumpy roads and whatnot. But it's anything's possible. Yeah.
So, Greg, you walked us through a lot of SFOC and waiver information. Can Volatus help companies through this process if they want to do it on their own?
Yes, great question again. Yes, in fact, we can. We actually are working right now with a company to provide them all the necessary documentation for them to become their own compliant operator and commercial operator. So yes, we have the necessary training courses and the in-house expertise to provide that service for anyone.
And what is the lead time in order for someone to get a unit if they're interested today?
Yeah, so the lead time on a unit, it's around 60 days, right? So depending on how you spec it out, it might add some time, might reduce some time, but right now it's around 60 days.
And as we all know, the winter can be pretty brutal in Canada. How can it work in the winter, or how do you navigate that?
Yeah, so it can work into negative 20 degrees and then up to 50 degrees. Um, and that's the DJI dock itself, right? So that's the point of failure, that negative 20. The other components on board are most likely going to be okay at lower temperatures, but you have to keep it at that above negative 20 for the dock 3 and the drone to operate correctly.
And there's an optional HVAC system that you can add to ensure that you're keeping that dock at
Correct.
its workable temperature.
Yep.
I want to point out when that happens, we say, oh, well, yeah, it's full HVAC. That's to keep the dock, the aircraft in the dock at a temperature that it's comfortable with.
Mhm.
Once that dock is up and 2 kilometers away from the dock and flying in maybe minus 30, which is every operator I know has pushed the envelope
Yeah.
and they go, ah, it just shortens my battery life, right? And it does shorten your battery life. There's a lot of things that can happen if you operate beyond the manufacturer's specifications and then come back and say, oh, I don't know, I lost my drone. Well, it froze, it fell, it died, it's in the bush somewhere, it's under 10 feet of snow. Like, please be careful about pushing the limits. Go ahead, Greg.
Sorry, and I just want to use my regulatory hand there. So to that end as well, when you are a compliant operator and you are filling in all these documentations, the reason Transport Canada grants certain BVLOS waivers to various companies is because they're following the true rules, and those rules imply if a drone, let's say the DJI dock drone, can only fly to minus 20, that you're not flying at minus 21. The second you do that, you've now broken, I'll use the word law, of what the regulator has permitted you to do. So these are things you have to take into consideration as well.
And if I could
And
just
things that Lattice can help with.
And this is
Yeah.
exactly, yes.
if I could just back up. So I failed to explain that there's two operating temperatures. The dock can operate down to -30. So it can remain powered on and operational at -30. So you can see what's going on. You're tied into the system remotely. Everything's functional at -30. It's the drone that can only fly to -20. So just gotta. That's why it's important to have a weather station on board.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're getting close to the top of the hour here. I'd like to give Greg, Rob, and Sean one final moment to give their final thoughts, and I'll go around the room, starting with you, Greg.
My final thought is BVLOS is here to provide safe, effective, um, reliable service if anyone needs it. But again, I stress the word safe because in order to continue drones and continue to dronify Canada and beyond, we have to do it in a safe way.
Rob.
I I think that it's important to point out, we attend a number of industry events. We are constantly looking at the evolving technology. This DJI Dock 3 that we're talking about today is the very best on the market right now for what it is intended to do. And getting your data quickly, accurately, and easy is what that equipment does. And when you try and modify what it's intended to do, it often still delivers. But just, don't try and hang stuff on it. Don't try and carry stuff with it. Use it for what it's intended, and it's an absolute great, great tool.
Good point. Sean.
Yeah, so I would just say that, I'm really excited about the Sentinel dock. I've been doing drones for 11, 12 years now, and ever since the beginning, I've kind of poo-pooed the whole dock uh, situation because again, it felt like a glorified carrying case, and some of them still feel like glorified carrying cases, right? They don't have the capability to truly offer a fully remote operation. And I think now that changes dramatically with something like the Sentinel dock and the BVLOS Sentinel dock. And I don't see many other people out there offering such a thing. Again, a lot of what you're seeing is a docking solution that needs to be bolted to the ground, hardwired in. Um, not having the capability to again just sort of drive it up, drop it off, do the initial commissioning, and you're up and rolling indefinitely, right? With those those external power and data features. So I'm really excited about it. And yeah, thank you for everyone to come into the webinar.
Thank you, Sean, Rob, and Greg, for a really insightful webinar. I learned a lot from you, and thank you to our audience for joining us today. This is just a reminder that the presentation recording will be sent within 24 hours via email. And if you have any additional questions, please reach out to us at info@volatusaerospace.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye now.